right, so this last part of this lecture here, we're going to kind of zoom out. We keep mentioning this area, Sub-Saharan Africa, and it really is. It's a geographical region, but there's also some historical, cultural consistencies there as well. Because, and we'll get into Africa a little bit more in the class, but I mean, Northern Africa and Egypt is very much part of the Mediterranean. Then right after that, you have this huge desert, the Sahara Desert. So that really is divides Africa, a natural divide between North and South Africa. The one area that connects or transects the Saharan Desert is the Nile River, and that's why a lot of goods and peoples moved between North and South Africa along it. Though there are people who live in the desert. There's nomadic groups still around today. They move between oasis sites. They too bring goods from sub-Saharan Africa up until to northern to the Mediterranean as well. And live in these sort of oases worlds where water is able to be found. So people have lived in the Saharan desert. From even times before Egypt, but they're mainly smaller hunter-gatherers, tribesmen, traders, nomadic worlds there. But below the Saharan Desert, South Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa, there's people that live down there as well. Again, as we looked at humans originating in Africa, they started there, and a lot of groups never left. Some coalesced along the Nile River, and then this whole sort of area between south or below the Sahara, there are some commonalities there. A lot of people refer to them as the Bantu peoples because they shared a common language, the Bantu language, which again you can kind of see. We'll get into languages a little bit later, but in the semester, but a lot of contemporary languages in sub-Saharan Africa can be traced or share features of the Bantu language groups. And when cultural anthropologists and historians look at that, if languages are similar, linguistics are similar, that tells us that there's some sort of connection there. Well, this will make more sense as we go through other parts of the world as well. They think that maybe these Bantu peoples started in West Africa. They cultivated yams, millet, sorghum, bananas. Here, this is a kind of a West African dish. They domesticated goats and cattle. It's believed the sub-Saharan Africans developed a method of producing iron, and this is one of their big trade items with Nubia and Egypt. They had their own religion, but again, over time, it's hard to really trace what these religions were. But the sky seemed significant. Creator gods were there as well. They had, societies of priests, rulers, chieftains. Rabbit is a common folklore in sub-Saharan Africa, so maybe some groups there. These Bantu people, most likely, again, this is sort of the beginning of West Africa, and they slowly over time, again, you have the Saharan Desert here. This is a huge rainforest, so the Bantu people probably spread along some went along the coast here, some went along the steppes, the sort of grasslands, moved in, settled the area of Lake Victoria, and then down to South Africa. So it's probably about a 2,000 year movement of peoples along, move very slowly. I mean, Africa is a huge continent. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but this is the first groups this sort of unique civilization in sub-Saharan Africa, this Bantu peoples. Smaller chiefdoms moved around, some hunting and gathering, but also a lot of permanent settlements as well with agriculture. And today there's about 500 languages that can trace their linguistic origins back to this Bantu world, which suggests that these peoples moved around. This will make more sense when we get into Indo-European languages, Austronesian languages later on in this semester. Another group of people who actually have their own language called Nilotic peoples. They were probably settled in the Sudan area, so they're a linguistic group in sort of these greater lakes. They're mainly known for cattle, dependent on cattle. Some permanent settlements, but also moved around and herded. So a lot of those pictures we saw of Nubians with cattle bringing it to Egypt, they were brought through by these Neolithic peoples. So trade networks connecting this Nilotic peoples, cattle herders. They would then bring their cattle to Nubia. Nubia would then take that cattle, bring it up to Egypt, which then could be transition into meat or leather or all sorts of products that come from cattle as well. So this is the sub-Saharan world. Kind of brings in the rest of Africa in the ancient early phases of human history in civilizations.